Jessica Lane is the founder of Data Informed Impact, which creates easy to leverage data dashboard systems and trainings for K-12 schools. She helps leaders and teachers close the student success gap with over 10 years of classroom and data coaching experience. She's a data informed, people driven expert who has developed custom solutions for 160 plus schools, and she believes that data should guide, not decide. Jessica lives in Cincinnati with her daughter, Emmy, and loves puzzles, Brene Brown, and her 50 houseplants. You beat me on the houseplants.
I think that number is a little bit higher now. I don't know.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
afraid to
you have
count.
a
Your
plant
ways.
obsession.
I'm a plant killer. Oh
Oh,
my
you
God.
are?
I
Oh,
am. I
Naomi.
have houseplants, but I have to replace
Well,
them
good.
regularly.
Oh, well, okay, so I'm glad you're here. And I really just want, this is so funny because, and I wonder if people instantly roll their eyes when they hear data, because and it's like, and the first question for you is like, why do you think data tends to be like a four-letter word in education that comes with an eye roll?
Yeah, I find that people are either on one end or the other when it comes to data. Like they are like, oh my God, if you say that word one more time, I'm gonna freak out. Or they're like, it works, it works, it works. Why are people using it? Why is everyone so mad about it? And it's taken a little bit because I've been mostly on the why are people using it? I've been mostly on that side, just being like a mathy tech person in general. But it's through the years of experience data coaching and working with all these different schools, I was like, oh no, there's a real reason that this fear exists. And I did some research diving into, the background of everything and if you think about how data is being used outside of education, like
Mhm,
businesses are on board. That's because
mhm.
it's connected to like profit, right? Like,
Right? Yeah.
yeah. And it's always been kind of like, oh, how can we make more money?
It's a measure of
And
success.
yes. And if you think about how it's been used in education, like when it first started coming into the world of education, it was mostly because of accountability. It
Punitive.
was
Punitive. Yeah.
very punitive. It started with like the race to space is kind of when all of that started. There was the A Nation at Risk, No Child Left Behind, like all of these like very accountability driven initiatives that
Mhm.
brought data into the picture.
Yeah.
And um that vibe of like ooh has stuck around because it's continued to be such a big piece when it comes to evaluations and
Right.
um I mean, I've been in buildings before where people have been called into accountability meetings, literally accountability meeting on the event on the calendar to go over their data. Um, and so, yeah,
It
and all of
doesn't
this,
feel good. It doesn't, like, it feels like the four-letter word, right? Like that
it
is
really does.
and it kind of, I mean, I'm on the other side of that fence too. I love data because it drives my decision making in communications for all of you
Yeah,
who don't. I just it's so important to me to know whether I'm being is if my messages are landing, right? And if
yeah.
it's all working and it's scientific in a way. So I love what you're doing and what you're talking about. But so how do you move from the four-letter word from data and education to how do you get into a healthier environment with it? How do you make that not so punitive in nature?
Yeah, so I started off, Casey, it's funny, I can't believe I haven't told you that story about accountability meetings. That's a good one. I'll share that one. But yeah, it started off with me creating, well, I became a data coach and I started creating these systems for my teachers to make their lives easier, whether it be on spreadsheets or dashboards, whatever it is. And that's kind of like how I started my business too. People started coming up to me and they're like, you need to do this for other schools. I was like, no, I love my job. And then my boss came to me and she's like, no, really, like there's not enough. educators out there who like to do this kind of thing, you should start doing it for other schools. And so I did, and I started creating all these systems, and I would come back to them and be like, hey, how are things going? And it would be crickets. Almost 90% of the time, crickets. And I'm like, why am I putting so much energy into this? And why are you paying me so much money for this if you're not using it?
Right.
Like, what's the disconnect there?
Hmm.
And so a couple years ago, I kind of took a step back and I was like, I'm not working on just data visualization anymore. That doesn't feel, I don't feel like I'm having the impact I want to have. It's not like scratching my itch for like, the passion that I have for education. And so I rebranded and started working not only with data visualization, but also data culture and data literacy,
Mm.
with the foundation being that data culture.
Data culture. Yeah, that's a
Yes.
whole different mind shift when you think about the culture of data.
Yes, yeah. So I completely stopped doing just systems on their own. Now it's a lot of back and forth with people who are going to be the ones using the data to make sure that whatever I'm creating for them is super customized to what they need. And then also just working with the leaders of those school buildings to make sure that they have that foundation of the data culture prior to working on data literacy and or data visualization, which data visualization, as much as I love it, loves all things spreadsheets and dashboards, you can do it without it. Like
Mhm.
that's the part that you actually don't need, but you do need that foundation of data culture and you do need that data literacy. So when I talk about data culture, I break it into 6 different pillars. So there has to be trust established. When I think about trust, I'm thinking like I'm trusting the people in this room to not use this against me in a
Mm.
punitive way, in an accountability way. I'm here to make mistakes and grow alongside you all. Psychological safety, which is very similar to trust, but then that has to do a little bit more with the judgment, the stuff that you don't really see on paper. Like I'm, going through this process with you all, hoping that you're not judging me based on my mistakes. And then there's leadership. You have to have strong leadership that's willing to take it beyond just checking the box, saying
Mhm.
we use data. There's collaboration, huge part. I mean, if you have a shared vision, if you have that those common celebrations, that camaraderie, that's going to be huge for data culture. Building capacity, so making sure that it's not just the administration that knows how to use the data. Not everyone should know how to use like a dashboard or read fancy graphs and charts, but everyone should know how to go through a data cycle, whether
Mm.
that be like within your classroom or as a team. And then the last one is protected time, which is the most difficult for all of us, right? Like that's the hard part. But
Absolutely.
if you don't make time for it, it won't get done.
Yeah. I think that's so important too, because we oftentimes are really focused on giving people all these supports, but then not giving them the time to implement them. The that and that the protected time, like you said, right? Where that's the quality that you need in order to be, or you need that time in order to be able to do it in a quality way, right? To implement
Yes.
your framework. So, the go through a little bit more about those steps. Like, what are the steps that you would, action steps that leaders can help where they can establish all of those culture pieces, so that they are working? How do you give them more time and how do you protect that? Like, there's all those things that you just mentioned, but what do you do specifically to help some of that grow and build those spaces?
Yeah, so like I said, protected time is definitely the hardest. You have to make it a priority. And what I tell people is to lean into that data cycle. And there are tons of different data cycles that you have out there. There's like DataWise, there's an improvement cycle, PDSA, um, all kinds of different examples. And I'm not here to recreate the wheel. That
Sure.
part's taken care of. What I say is that make sure that you're going through some process of understanding what you're looking at,
Okay.
asking the right questions, and acting on that data. And then coming back around. It's a cycle. So coming back around to see whether or not your actions have led to change. And if you're leaning into that cycle, that gives you a perfect layout for any kind of data meetings. And you don't have to, dedicate the entire meeting to these data cycles. It can be 10 minutes for understanding and asking the right questions, 5 minutes for coming up with a plan, split people into groups. There are lots of, we're teachers. We know how to do that kind of stuff, right? There are ways to do it, but the problem is that we're wasting a lot of time looking at data without actually coming up with some kind of plan.
Mm,
And that's what I
okay.
found. Yeah, that's what I found in my days teaching. I was not a perfect data teacher by any means. Like I loved it, but
Yeah.
if it wasn't a priority, if it wasn't something that people made time for, it just kind of went to the wayside. I remember going to a data meeting and we sat there and analyzed this. I think it was like diagnostic data. It's a really long time ago, it feels like. And we had it on paper and we would highlight, and I'm not against paper pencil. The ways that I did use data, a lot of it was paper pencil, but we were highlighting and we had this stack of all this important data that we had looked at, like the top five, the bottom five, all that kind of stuff. Went back to our classrooms, and I remember putting it on my desk with great intentions. And the next time I looked at it, it was dusty, like, and useless.
Yeah.
Because there was no plan. There was no plan to come back to it to see whether or not there's been change. And I tell people you're gonna have to handhold a little bit through the first couple data cycles because the motivation comes from the celebration. If
That's so good.
Yes, if you do not feel the impact, if you cannot connect your data use to impact, there's no point. So whether you're a coach or you're in a leadership team, you are hand holding through those first couple of cycles until that celebration of like, oh, we did it. We did this, and this is the impact it had.
I think that's
And
so important. You got to celebrate that.
yes,
That's a huge
yes.
accomplishment.
And then that's where your motivation comes from to do it again. That's what makes you want to make that time.
Makes you want to repeat that and makes it repeatable.
Yes, exactly.
I think that's hard for some people too, is that investing in the time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it takes time. It takes planning. I will say it takes more planning than anything else.
But I was sitting here
Um,
thinking when you're talking about that, I'm like, so what does that planning look like with your teachers and with your leaders? Like, how do you set that up? What kind of format do you suggest usually?
Yeah, so I think it depends. I've used lots of different tools. With a teacher, I like to use kind of like a reteaching cycle. So sitting down with them, looking at data with them, and coming up with some kind of reteaching plan for to either fill in the gaps for the students who didn't quite understand whatever you were teaching and or to extend for the students who did understand, coming up with that plan, helping them through that reteaching plan, and then coming back to see the change. So again, you're going through that cycle and they're getting more and more comfortable with that cycle. I have a tool on my website that kind of takes people through that cycle, and I call it a habit building tool. It's
Mm,
not
mm.
anything that should be used for every single assessment or for every teacher. There have been times
Right.
when I've changed my ideas about that, but for me, when I was in my classroom, I said I used a lot of paper pencil. I would give some kind of formative assessment on a half sheet of paper, and they would put it in the air when they were finished. I would trade them for some kind of assignment, and I would stick it in between my fingers. I would do understood, perfect, 100%. There'd only be like two questions. Needs just a
Oh,
quick check-in
uh-huh.
or needs to be pulled for a small group. And as I collected them, I would sort them and I would check in with the people in that second group. And then once we got most of them completed, I would pull either the people who were struggling, who were still working, those people, if there are still some of those, pull those people back along with the people who needed that reteaching.
Yep.
So using data, it's not on a spreadsheet.
But it's
It's not,
so practical. That's
it
what
works.
I love that. I'm sitting here like, okay, this one I'll remember because I could pull those groups and you
Yes.
know they don't even know what you're doing because then you have three stacks of paper in
Yeah.
here and that is genius.
And they
I
loved it
pay
too.
is
They
it
were like, I don't understand. I need to go to the back with you. And I'm
that's
like, okay, cool. You're in that group.
what is it? The mic drop moment here today was the stacking in your fingers for data. Like, how cool is that?
Can you
Yeah.
share
I need
the
to have
3
Post-its
stacks that
ready.
you had again?
She simplified it so fast.
For
Yeah, go for
So
it.
the first stack was 100% got it. Don't need anything.
I don't need anything.
The second stack was one tiny mistake. I just need to check in with them. I was a math teacher, so you forgot your negative sign here, or you didn't move, those things. And then the third stack was pretty much completely off base. We need to go back and reteach.
Starting from zero.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
I put it in the chat.
good. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it wasn't on some kind of fancy tool. Those are the things that you don't need. They do
Ooh,
make things easier sometimes, but you don't need them. And that's
no.
coming from someone who like I said, I love a good spreadsheet. So
Right. And I understand that. I like a good spreadsheet too. Um, but for like on the go, on the fly, and you're so busy and you've got so many things going on, that's so easy to use and go right then. Yeah.
yep. Yeah. Yeah. It made sense. And I used that for a long time until I started working a bit. I got attached to a digital resource that I was using that also worked really well, but it worked in the same way that all of the other ones do. I mean,
Oh,
it's
that's so
nothing special there.
what
Um,
are some favorite tips like that? It could be spreadsheets or otherwise that you can use to kind of evaluate and where you're going to go back and have to reteach or replan, whatever that step is. But what are some of your other resources that you like?
yeah. I love Looker Studio. That is a Google tool and
Looker
it is a
Studio?
tool, Looker Studio. Yes.
Like this,
It is a,
Looker?
yes.
Okay, just checking because I'm writing it out.
Yep. Yes. It is free for educators who are on like a Google, at a
Cool.
Google school, and you can connect any kind of Google sheet to it and visualize that data. There's a learning curve there, but once you get past that learning curve, it's free. Once you get past that learning curve, you're everyone's favorite person because no matter what kind of data you're looking at, you can take it and make it into something that people can understand. I was in this meeting once. We were on this very clunky platform for state assessment data. And there was someone walking us through it. She didn't work for them, but she knew the platform very well.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like horizontal scrolling, which is always such a pain. I cannot
Oh
stand
yeah.
horizontal scrolling. And then, like halfway through, the lines would get all messed up. And it was so I was just like sitting there watching, like, oh my goodness, this is going to take my teachers so much time. And so they asked, because they're trying to figure out how they can use it in their classroom. You have one person who's like, I just want to show you this platform. And then you have the group who is like thinking through the practical version of this. And a
Yeah.
lot of times those are disconnected, which I can go down a whole another route when it comes to training on tech. But anyway, so at one point, one teacher said, okay, I want to be able to use this data. It actually wasn't state assessment data, it was benchmark data on the state assessment platform. She said, I want to be able to use this data to create small groups. We had been working on data use. She was doing fantastic things in her classroom. And she's like, how can I sort them into groups based on these standards? And the person running it said, well, you can't do it on here, but what you can do is you can export it into a spreadsheet. You can go in, you can sort them, you can do some conditional formatting. You can add a couple formulas in here to figure these things out. And they all just turned and looked at me, my teachers. And I said, don't worry, I'll create some kind of template that where like you drop it in and it does it all for you. So that's what I love to do. And she got kind of upset. The person leading it said, you guys should want to do this. You should want to have to do this in order to look at data. And I was like, no, I don't care whether or not they want to conditional format things. I
No.
don't care whether or not they want to sort and like, yes, there is kind of like a bare minimum. You should know how to use tech, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is being able to look at it and make moves from it.
Yes.
And
To close those
if that
gaps.
Yes, if that initial step, understanding, takes too long, you don't
Mhm.
get to the asking and you don't get to the acting.
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
ask you this because it brought up something for me when I was talking to you, and I've used it. I just want to know if you've used it or if you've encouraged your teachers to use AI to analyze data. Have you guys done that yet?
Um, I love AI in terms of being a business owner. I love it so much. I am still very nervous about
Uh-huh.
putting any kind of data in there.
Um,
Um,
Obviously there's education platforms of AI.
yeah,
I
right,
don't know what the
right.
capacity is because I too have that same thing. Um,
Yeah,
But I actually put some surveys into and a pre and a post, and I wanted to see what it would come up with versus what I traditionally would come up with.
yeah, right.
And it saved me well, it did it in
Yes.
about 40 seconds. And it
Yes, and I
built
would
my
say
spreadsheet for me. And I was like,
there you go. Perfect.
um, but some of it's wrong. I didn't trust all of it, and that's what I was
Yeah.
wondering because it's still the new piece of it. But I didn't know if you
Yes.
had played around with it or if there's anything that you recommend on the AI side for analyzing data.
I would number one make sure that all the data, all the identifiable information is taken
Yes,
out before ever using it.
proprietary information gone.
100%. Please, please, please do not put student names, addresses, and test scores in there.
IB.
Um,
No.
but yeah, I think there's a lot. Like you said, it's very new. I like to have a bit more control over what I'm doing. So I'm like on that end where I'm like, no, I want to see everything that's happening.
Mhm.
But I also do a lot of app script, which is like the behind the scenes of Google Sheets and Google Forms where you can actually like script code, to
Mhm.
automate things. That's kind of how people buy not buy build like add-ons. Um, so I use AI for that a ton. I learned it all before we all had access to AI, which kind of bums me out because I could have saved so much time. But now, if I need a script, I'm like, turn this Google form, connect this Google form to this Google sheet, make a template on this doc, and then fill in all the pieces. Like, it will write the whole script for me. It takes
Nice.
a little
That's
bit back and forth,
awesome.
but
Yeah.
That's awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to like two things you said. One was the state assessment platforms are so not teacher friendly. Like it takes forever to just figure out what you're looking at. But then, like the woman being upset that they were going to rely on you to create this for them, like the more it's just like students, the more steps between the data and the action, the less likely the teachers are to take the action. So it's just going to be, and I've done the same thing you did, walked out of a data meeting, set it on my desk with all good intentions, and it just gathered dust. And that's exactly what's going to happen if we have too many steps and we don't provide
Yep.
those rules. And it's just like, we don't need, no, they do not need to know how to do all of this. They need to know what the data means and what to do with it. That's what they need.
Yes, exactly. Like, and again, you want to get to that point of celebration. You want to
Mhm.
be able to make that connection to the steps that you're taking, from the steps that you're taking to the impact that it has, because that's all why we're in, like that's why we're all in it, right? We all want to see the impact. And without that emotional aspect, data's just numbers, and a lot of people don't like numbers anyways. Like that we could go into math trauma, which is a real thing. So um it's yeah, it's really it's all about making this connection. There's one other thing too that I thought of that I like to tell leaders is when we're talking about that feeling defensive when it comes to data meetings. I've done this before and it worked so well and it just makes so much sense. I had been sending out a data set like every week, had teachers' names on it. That was a long time ago. I've learned a lot, okay? But people were feeling some kind of way about it. And so we went into a meeting and I pulled up the data on the screen and then I went over to the whiteboard and I said, I want you to tell me what I don't see. And I just stood up there at the whiteboard and wrote down everything they said. This class has low attendance. This class has someone suspended. This class is a higher level class, so they're not spending time on the computer. They're spending time on a book project, which we love. That's not something we should look down on. And I did not say a word. I just wrote up everything they said. And I said, okay, let's all acknowledge this. Okay, now that we know this and we have this data, where can we go from there? Because the context is worth just as much as these numbers that we're seeing on the board. And I don't want you to ever think that we're ignoring this context. And it was like everyone let out a deep breath. Like,
Sigh.
finally we can. And the thing is too, when I think about data meetings that I've been in where people are feeling, you see that teacher there that's like, you can tell what's going through their head. They're like, no, this facilitator does not understand what's going on in my classroom. There are all these other things that are beyond my control that, they're ignoring and da 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 da. So I say at the beginning of the meeting, say, what is it we don't see? Give them the chance to get all of that out of their system and be heard and understood, and then say, okay, now what value can we pull from this data? Even if the value is that this assessment is junk, that's value. Now we know. What other assessments do you think we should try? So it's all about like making sure that people are heard and making sure that you are including that additional context with the data before you're making any kind of action plan.
That was great. To,
Love
I
that.
mean, to help it's kind of goes back to Casey in the in the difficult conversations and assuming what people are thinking rather than assuming, starting in and what is it that we don't see. That's such a great way to start. Like it
Yes.
just automatically clears the air for all of the things that they think you may not cover in the data.
Yep.
That's so
Exactly.
good. I
Yep.
like
We
that.
did
Yeah.
have a question, Jessica. What was the AI tool that you mentioned that you use?
It had to
I
do with
usually only,
Google.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
use Gemini.
Okay.
Gemini. Well, you mentioned something else for like creating script
Oh, app script,
apps.
APPS, and then
Okay.
script. That's
Okay.
like the background of Google. That's not an AI tool in itself, but I use AI along with that to script all those things. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Um,
Thank you so much.
yeah.
So, you have a free gift for us too.
Yes, of course.
Will
I
you
am
tell
gonna
us a
put,
little bit about your free gift?
yes. So I am putting the bit.ly in the
Okay.
chat, and those are I's, DII, like data informed impact. I always have to say that because they look just like L's. Um, uh, so this is my data culture framework. So it is going to go through those 6 pillars that I talked about earlier. It's going to give you like a little self-assessment in there, give you a place for an action plan, just overall a very holistic way of looking at data culture in schools.
That's
Awesome.
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most fun I've had talking about data. And we've had a couple of you today on talking about data, and like it's just been like fun conversations about data and like actionable conversations. Cause I mean, we've all sat in those like horrible data meetings. So I think there's probably plenty on here that have like data trauma, you know.
Yeah.
So I think those of you who have talked about data today have like given some of us some hope. And like
Right.
data doesn't have to be boring, data doesn't have to be painful and traumatic. This was fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going anywhere, so we better like figure out how to
Yes,
do it
that's
the right
true.
way instead of just, checking off boxes and calling accountability meetings.
And I hopefully I put my glasses on and I did a double check that was
It's the
not
right
the
finger.
middle finger.
It's the right
It is the correct finger. It is the correct finger. You're
I
not.
was literally going, please not that be the middle. And because it's the print, I have even my reading glasses are so small, I can't see. I shouldn't have
Oh,
used
that's
it.
funny.
But anyways, it's a great day. We're just gonna do it anyways.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jessica. This was fantastic.